Hello everyone, this is Sarah and welcome to another video at Mahika.studios. So prepare yourselves for a little longer video today, but if you're going to paint along with me, this wouldn't seem like a long video. So please gather some of the materials I'm going to show you and let's paint together. If you are a beginner, don't worry and don't think like you can't do this. You can do it and we are here to enjoy painting. Along the way, if you feel like adding your own touches and details which you have noticed, please do add it. It would bring in your own style to your painting. If you want to try this painting using watercolors, you can do that, as this acrylic painting technique that I'm going to show you is similar to watercolor painting. I have chosen a very simple landscape here which is perfect for any skill level. So let's get started. It's an acrylic painting on paper, so I hope you have acrylic paints with you. Any brand is fine. I'm using Winsor and Newton today. So I have taped this 300 GSM cold press watercolor paper onto my table using washi tape. If you don't have washi tape, it's okay. You can use a white masking tape instead. I'm using the cold press paper because I like that bumpy texture that the cold press papers have, and hot pressed papers are nothing but the finishing would be smooth of the paper. So you can choose whichever you like. You can use any brand that's available, but at least get 240 GSM paper for this painting. So these are the brushes I've planned to use. I have the size 4, 8, 6 and a flat brush as well. You'll see that I've not used a flat brush at all throughout this painting, and I just got comfortable with the size 4 brush and painted the entire painting using that brush. Water, don't forget to get 2 balls of water. For a palette, I'm using a takeout containers cap for now, and you can use a plastic palette or a ceramic plate you have at home. So the 3 primary colors that we would need for this painting are red, yellow and blue. So the yellow that I'm using is the cadmium yellow or the permanent yellow. Whichever brand you're using, use that yellow which is in between, not the lemon yellow nor the yellow ochre. For the blue, choose the deep blue in your color palette. I'm using Phthalo Blue here. I don't know how to pronounce this blue, but I will leave the details of these colors in the description down below. And then for the red, use crimson red. And we're going to paint this landscape by using just these 3 colors. So I've used a reference image from unsplash.com, which is a photograph by John Mark Arnold. So I'll leave the link down below to download the image for your reference to paint. So as you saw, this painting has more greens than any other color. So we'll try and make this green by mixing yellow and a bit of blue. So you can see the green is forming when you've mixed yellow and blue. So the first shade that I'm trying here is where I've added more of blue and I've got this green that's almost closer to yellow. Then the next is where I've added a bit more of blue, and so this is like a nice pure green that I've got. A bit more of blue made it closer to blue and like a nice dark green shade. Then I've added a lot more yellow than the first, and so it's become this very light yellowish green. So now I decided to add a bit of that crimson to make it to that muddy green that we get, which is olive green. So you can see that it's turned into that muddy brownish green. So this is the olive green shade. Now I'm just going to mix yellow, blue and that crimson red to create this sort of green that's closer to black, like a pitch dark green, which we can use to create depth. Instead of using black, it's always best to create the darkest tone of that shade that you are using. So you yourself try various shades of these greens by mixing more yellow and blue or adding a bit of crimson, and try to create various shades of greens while you're doing this along with me to understand the shades that we can build with just these two colors. So now I'm mixing this crimson to make a brown shade. So brown is obviously created by using orange and blue. So orange is again crimson and yellow, and a bit of blue to it would make it brown. So I'm trying to create this sort of burnt sienna color. So today the technique that we're going to try and follow using acrylic is sort of this watercolorish technique, where we dilute this acrylic paint and use it like it's watercolor, from building it from light to dark tone. So now what I'm doing is I'm going to dilute this paint, and I'm going to show you how we create this sort of watercolorish look. So you can see how transparent it's become when I've diluted this color. And the next is where I'm just taking off that excess water off my brush and trying to make it a little dry, but not too dry. And then moving my brush over the paper, and it's creating this sort of dry texture over it. So which is really good when you have to build some textures on this landscape that we are going to work on. So the next is we need to have some grass textures when we are painting this landscape. So try and do these lines, which is crisscross, and it's some are longer, some are shorter. You know how the grass is grown, some short, some long. So similarly, just try and move your brush here and there, and you'll build these kind of grass-like texture. So give all these techniques a try before we start painting, so it'll be easier for you to catch up and paint along. So I'm going to paint the horizon line of that mountain. You can use pencil to do that. I'm not going to draw the tree. I'm just going to mark where the tree is going to come. And then I'm going to draw the tree later on, but you can draw the tree as well. So now this is a flat brush that I'm using to apply water. This is a big flat brush. So I'm doing this quick wash with water, just like we do for watercolor. I'm gonna paint the sky first. So it's like this wet on wet method, where you give it like a gradient tone of that blue. So I'm mixing the blue. I'm gonna add a bit of that crimson because I don't feel like it's that bluish blue for the sky. I feel like it's like a grayish blue to it. So I'm adding that crimson because of that. So I'm starting from the top. I'm going to give the darkest tone on top and then blend it down to a transparent level. So I'm adding more water because acrylic dries the paint quickly, so keep adding water. Don't make it too wet, but you can understand when you're painting, and then keep it wet and then add the other shades as well. I'm adding a bit of yellow to the bottom as well because I feel like that greenish landscape kind of reflects back into the sky, so that part needs a little yellow as well. So I'm adding a bit of yellow and then shade of crimson to it and making it a little grayish. So I've added too much here, but then I'm going to add water and then just lift that color off. So I'm going to blend it off with the sky. So you can see that we've built that gradient from blue to almost sort of light pink to the end. So now I'm going to add a bit more depth to the top part of the sky. So now let's move on to the greener part. I'm going to apply more water just like we did for the sky, and then I'm going to add a base color of yellow because I feel like it's more yellowish at the base when you look at the image. So I'm adding that yellow. Always remember, towards the front it's going to be darker, and then when you move backwards it becomes lighter. So that kind of builds that perspective, like it's going far. So whatever is closer to you is darker, and then whatever is further from you becomes lighter. So now I'm adding that green color to build that darker feel towards the front, to build that perspective. So I'm sort of going from the front towards the back by adding sort of like texture along the way when I'm moving backwards. And then I'm just gonna draw that horizon line correctly because I felt I made it too much of a mountain at the back. So I'm just redrawing that. I'm just gonna directly go with that green. So I'm mixing up more shades of green. I'm going to add a bit of yellow in between and then the lighter green. So you can see I'm just trying to build up with various tones of greens. So I'm going to add a bit more of that yellowish green in between. And even at the back, I'm trying to give that lighter tone of green which has more yellow to it. So you can see I've sort of built that darker foreground, and towards the back it's become a little lighter, and then at the end near the mountain it's a little dark. And then I have tried to give that depth of that road. That's not a road, I think it's just the grass that's gone darker towards the back. So I've just given that outline of it as well, and then I'm gonna draw out the line of that dark bushes far away. So I'm mixing this dark green that I had told you earlier, which is closer to black, to create those trees or those bushes at the back. So I'm moving my brush in this circular motion, like almost creating like those are trees at the back. So like at the bottom, I'm making it really dark, and then when I'm moving the brush in a circular form, it's becoming a little lighter. And now I'm using that dry brush technique that I told you. Just moving my brush, which is dry, and then it's sort of creating a texture on top of it. Now I'm thinking I should place a tree, so I need to give that line near the tree as well. There are some dark trees at that area as well, so I'm gonna build that as well. So you can start light with that dark green that we mixed. You can dilute it and then draw those outlines, and then you can build on it, build the depth on it slowly. So I hope you can feel like there are these trees at this distance. Like I feel like there are trees forming. So now I'm sort of giving that dark tone for that grass that was starting in the front and moving towards the back. That's the thing that's kind of going to build us this perspective in our painting. So towards the front, it's a little more wide, and towards the back, it's getting narrow. So observe that and paint exactly what you see. Keep adding various shades of green whenever you feel like. And now I'm doing this grass texture in the foreground to sort of build that perspective, to give that depth, because when it's closer you can see the grass, and when you go further, in reality also, if you think about it, like when you go further, it's kind of like a blurred image to your eyes as well. So that's what we're going to try and create here. So again, those grass lines. If you feel like it's getting a little difficult to paint the grass with the brush like that, you can use pencil, colored pencil, a shade of green, and do that grass as well. In between, I'm going to add tones of yellow as well, because as I told you, when it goes further away, you need to add lighter tones to it. So towards the front, add those darker greens that we had built when we were mixing colors, and towards the back, add some yellow as well. So now I'm just gonna time lapse this video a bit, and you can just see how I've built the grass when it's moving really fast, where the foreground has a lot of grass and towards the back it's here and there, it's a little more spread out. I'm mixing a bit of crimson to our green and trying to build that brown shade to draw the tree. I'm going to slowly start to draw the tree. If you feel like your tree is invisible, just draw an outline of the tree with the pencil and then paint over it. So make sure the bark and those branches are a little dark, and the thinner twigs, make it really light. Don't put too much pressure on your brush when you're painting the twigs so that you get those thin lines. If you're finding it difficult to paint those lines of the trees, you can use color pencil. A brown shade would be perfect, and you can draw those lines easily. finally, for that little glow, I'm going to mix the white with a little bit of yellow for some highlights. And finally, we have completed our landscape painting. So if you have painted this painting with me, do share your artworks to Mahika.studios at gmail.com, or you can tag your paintings to me on Facebook or Instagram. I would love to see your works. Please do share it with me. Thank you so much for painting along with me. I hope you enjoyed this painting session with me. If you would like to see more of such videos, please do comment down below. Like, share, and subscribe to my channel. Thank you guys. I love you all. Bye and take care.